Welcome to episode 8 of Screenblend. I am one of your co-hosts, Will Cutts, and as always, I'm joined by the great Jack Mason. And in today's episode of Screenblend, it's a two-parter. We go into the DC Extended Universe, or whatever they're calling it these days. We go through Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, Justice League, and Suicide Squad. And then we'll be doing part 2 later in the week, so come back for that. We also go into the latest news with our favorite segment of the week, Extraction Talk, look at Cannes Film Festival, a bit of MCU, and we forgot to go into May the 4th last week, so there's some Star Wars news, and everyone's favorite guilty pleasure movie, National Treasure, is coming back with a third movie and maybe a TV show. So wait to have a listen to Screenblend. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and we'll also see you back for part 2 later in the week of our DCEU chat. Enjoy. And episode 8, Mace, of Screenblend. Is that correct? We're saying 8?
I think that is.
I think we're saying 8.
I've got to double check, but I think so.
I'm hoping we can get to the point where we don't have to say what number episode it is, and we just say, and we're back with Screenblend.
After episode 10.
After episode 10, and we hit the double digits there. But we're back again this week now, Mace, to talk about everything movies, TVs, and games. There's still information dripping out in the world now, and we've got another main topic for this week, what I think a lot of you are interested to listen to and interact us with about the DC Extended Universe or Cinematic Universe or whatever they're calling it now, bloody these days, like the Sony Spider-Man verse that we won't go into, hopefully ever again. But that is the topic for this week. We do actually have a bit more news as things are sort of coming out a little bit more now, as some productions are getting back into starting. Some more game news coming out also, and there's a bit of other chat around too. But Mace, how's your week been, mate? We're recording this at night time though, compared to a normal morning, so both of us need to really get up and about.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired. I still got my coffee here and it's 6 o'clock. So I either won't be able to sleep tonight and the caffeine's probably just not going to hit me in the same way.
You need to have that. Do you find, segueing off into coffee chat, but when you have a coffee now at this time, it won't hit you until another couple of hours. But I find if I then had that coffee in preparation for something, like say if I had it at 5 for 6, it would do nothing for me. Like,
debatable. We'll find out.
Oh, you'll be buzzing by the end of the podcast. You'll be like, oh my God, we can't even finish now. I've got so much more to talk about. Birds of prey.
I really fucking hope so.
Yeah. So now we'll move into news. I was hoping to have a jingle ready for this week for the news segment, but we're not just yet. And so we slide into news now, Mace. There's actually a lot to go through. Like I said a minute ago, more stuff is coming out, but it's still not huge news yet. There's just sort of drip feeding. But I think a segment I want to bring in each week is my new favorite movie of the year is Extraction Talk. They're still talking about sequel, prequel, and it is looking like they will be coming back in the next, again, if productions come. The Russo brothers are back on to produce, and I think it's Joe, and I'm doing a 50-50 guess because I should have the article up here, is back to write it also. So is this something you're interested in, again, coming out soon?
Oh, of course. I mean, for people who have seen it, it's still, breaking Netflix records. So, and I'm sure they gave a big check. Yeah, Netflix records. Yeah, inverted commas. But yeah, no, I'm very keen. Yeah, sequel, prequel, I'm up for anything really. If it works in the same way as John Wick, it's going to be a basic plot line, but more straight to, straight and fast-paced action. You and me are there.
We're there in a heartbeat, and that's I think a really important thing at the moment. But it's a good franchise, and I'm enjoying how there's news coming out pretty much every week because it's the only thing that people are watching in the last bit of time. So the Russos are sort of smashing it there. I did see today the Russos, and follow them on Instagram if you don't already, but they're doing a little bit of a film school on Instagram. So it just came out today, so I followed it. There's nothing up on there. So it could be like us in a podcast. So they'll stop after 9 episodes maybe. But nah, I'm kidding. But they're putting some stuff up to help you with filming and stuff in isolation and to hone your skills from a director's chair, what I think is interesting. Next bit of news, Cannes Film Festival won't continue this year as expected with a lot of this stuff.
Canned?
Sorry. That's one ding. If I can be bothered putting like a ding in there or something in post-production. But they're looking at doing that online if possible, if some films, because there was films ready to be shown already at this year's festival. and then those films normally look to the end of the year to then be shown at cinemas, but they have to find a company to release them. So they'll still probably do them online, and how that works, not everyone's sure. But imagine just having a Zoom, like paying a bit of money, and everyone's just watching. Got the webcam up, and you see the reactions of everyone.
That'd be great. I mean, I love Cairns. I've been there last year. Beautiful beach, beautiful. I'm just as happy.
I also like a good can.
Yeah. Oh God,
good.
This is getting out of control.
This is why we don't record at night. This has gone far. This has gone real bad. Next, sliding through to a bit of MCU chat, is they're saying that WandaVision had finished filming before everything shut down. And will we see, one, a trailer soon, and two, will we get this series by the end of the year? Is that something you'd think, Mace? And also, Winter Soldier and Falcon series is apparently going back into production in Prague in the next week or so. So, they're pushing that through there. I'm not up with all the statistics in those parts of Europe, but maybe they can get some production done there. What would be interesting? Thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I actually thought Winter Soldier was and Falcon was planned for the end of the year before the other series. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they're going to going back into production, to see where that still aims for kind of a late 2020 release date, and WandaVision, if that's finished, that might replace it.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Quickly, just seen 9 minutes ago as we're recording, and hopefully this is correct. But Jerry Stiller, Ben Stiller's father and Seinfeld star, has passed away.
Oh, really?
Just now, yeah.
Oh,
92.
Oh.
So I'm just checking if they're saying, but he's passed away from natural causes. So.
And everyone will remember him as Ben Stiller's dad in Zoolander.
Yes.
Like he was great in that. He was a hoot.
So no, I just saw that. We're not normally one to
King of Queens as well, wasn't he?
Yeah,
or was that King of Queens?
Yeah, probably too. So, but sad news. At 92. So we'll slide into a bit of. Actually, we'll continue on the Marvel chat. And Spider-Verse producers have come out saying they did pitch to Sony that they were looking for cameos, most likely a post-credit scene. Wake up, Mace! Wake up! For Tom Holland, Andrew Garfield, and Tobey Maguire. So maybe that would have taken over from the post-credit scene we did get at the end of Spider-Verse. So I know they didn't do it just because they thought it was too soon. And I think it was supposed to be yesterday at time of recording, so maybe 9th or 10th of May, that it was going to be the 9-year anniversary for the 4th Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie to come out. I don't know why we even bother about remembering a movie that was never got made. But yes, so they thought it was too soon. Shows again, we've had a lot of Spider-Man movies since then. But would have that been something you like to see, or something to leave for a sequel?
I would have loved to see it, to be honest, but I also heard as well directors weren't quite sure with the ideas that might kind of confuse audiences who haven't seen all the previous iterations of Spider-Man. If I've only known Tom Holland to be Spider-Man, I'll be a bit confused, by Tobey Maguire, and what's McCall it?
Andrew Garfield, mate.
Andrew Garfield popping the screen. So, I think it really has a lot of potential, and I'd love to see it, especially fans. But for a general audience, I can see their hesitation.
Yeah, I think that is nailed on the spot. We'll jump through now to the other part of Disney, because they bloody own everything now.
This is your favourite news of all time, I reckon.
Oh, no, yeah, it's all. But I'm going to leave that to the last moment, Jack. I'm leaving that to the end. The Star Wars chat now. Obviously, it was May the 4th, or when we recorded last week, and we forgot about it. But Mark Hamill did reiterate again on Twitter that this is the last time he'll be playing Luke Skywalker. Anyone who's asking, because I'm sure he'd say it's the last time, but we all know what a paycheck can do, and 10 more years, and we never know if he'll be back or some stories in between. So do you think we'll ever see him back as Luke Skywalker, or if we'll see any of those characters again?
Maybe not on the screen, but I feel like, Star Wars spans comics and television shows. I feel like he still might guest star in one of those.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a quite renowned voice actor, for his Joker roles and stuff. So I'm sure any chance, like I said, big enough paycheck, I reckon he might come back, just not in a major not a major movie.
Yeah, I've got a feeling you might be bang on there, and probably in some form of cartoon. They'll probably bring him back at some point because they'll need content. And then my sister's best mate, throwing that very loosely, Tamura Morrison is returning as Boba Fett for Mandalorian season 2. So I might get Aaron to text him and get an exclusive on next week's episode. But no, I think that's good. We're seeing a bit more into the Mandalorian season 2. Some main characters connecting the film universe and the TV universes. So interesting. No, any thoughts before we get into the biggest news of the week?
No, I think you should just lead in with the biggest news.
The biggest news is bloody National Treasure, Mason. National Treasure. Sorry for everyone listening. How bloody good. How bloody good. Looking at National Treasure 3 and a TV show like for Disney Plus. So I don't know how that's going to work TV show wise and whether Nick Cage, etc., is going to be doing that. But I think the movie is huge. And I reckon this is a bang on Disney Plus movie though. If this comes out just as a Disney Plus, I think that can be a big thing for the platform. And I feel like all those actors, and you can make a National Treasure movie. It's not heavily CGI'd. You could make that for 40, 50. I know money's not a thing for Disney. Actually, how much do you reckon the other National Treasure movies cost to make?
Oh, okay. Yeah, you got me now. I wouldn't say an awful lot. I might say anywhere, but yeah, like you said, 60, 70 million. Yeah. Maybe Nicolas Cage's wage might be a little higher.
Yeah, let's have a look.
But I think a series would be really good. Yeah. Young Benjamin Gates.
Yeah. Bang on 100 mil, they're saying. Now, the biggest thing, and this is going to be my question for the week, remind me to make a graphic for it, but what are they stealing in number 3? Because they've got to steal something.
Oh, all right. So Declaration of Independence was one. Second was something really big, something Indiana Jones territory. I don't know. The Holy Grail. I really have no idea.
Something. Yeah. So I'm thinking now. I'm like, what are they bloody going to steal? So steal, or what are they trying to find? I always think is a good one. If they get the band back together, I'm going to be really excited though. So this one's really, really hit me. Do you reckon Tom Holland would play the young Benjamin Gates? Since he's playing the young of everything.
Nah, he's got Uncharted going for him, mate. He can't do too many adventure films in one.
No, but I'm really excited for this, for a Disney Plus show and movie. And it's good. So the only other thing too, I just saw before too, everyone's favorite Christopher Nolan movie coming out this year, Tenet. What, you got your phone up? What are you doing? I couldn't see.
I've got some news as well after you.
Oh, you got some news? Oh, news. We're breaking news today. But apparently Christopher Nolan's Tenet is still looking at its original release date, and they were deciding within the week if they were going to continue with that, because they'd obviously have to start coming out with their marketing collateral. And he is very set on his film being the first film to get people back into the cinema, what I think is interesting. Depending on where you are in the world.
That would be a great one.
No, it would be. But I think places like where we are right now, they're trying to get cinemas open next month. Again, it is still socially distant, but I could still see that being a huge hoot for people. Hoot.
Yeah. Tenet would lure me in, that's for sure. Yeah. And just in a bit more news, we've also got Tokyo Game Show, which was in late September. That's been cancelled, and that's another online convention going online. And just to follow up last week, as you know, Will, Assassin's Creed Valhalla got announced, and some gameplay and a few Xbox exclusives were also shown as well later last week. And so there's heaps of exclusives lined up. There's a dinosaur one. You almost have to look on the website for a few more details on that. But there's a huge lineup for the new Xbox games, next-gen games. And with AC Valhalla leading the cause, and that's to do with Vikings.
Ooh,
so
Vikings.
You'll be able to have your Viking boat, create a Viking village, and recruit people. And
what other Viking things can you create?
Huts, customize your Viking boat. Bloody
axe. I don't know.
An axe, your Viking axe. Yeah, some Viking jewelry, some Nordic. Yeah. But so that's been announced. So there's quite a few big games there. But I would definitely say go to the website for more details on that, because there's lots of games announced.
Will you link that below for everyone, Jack?
Of course.
Done.
Mate.
Perfect. Go to the website.
For the viewers.
For the viewers, yes. And you can do that on the podcast too. So remember to give us a subscribe, give us 5 stars, follow us at Screen_Blend, and Jack at Jack_Mason22. and me, it will be Cuts. But we're going to move on to our main topic for this week, the DC Extended Universe. What a beautiful thing, Mace. What a beautiful thing. Where does this,
Yeah.
where does
Yeah,
this,
that might...
sense my sarcasm, where does this franchise sit with you? And when someone says to you, DC Extended Universe, how do you feel?
I have very mixed feelings, more negative than I do positive.
Yep.
So just in case everyone's wondering, DC Extended Universe started in 2013 with Man of Steel.
Yep.
Coming off the hype, of the Nolan Batman films, going for that kind of darker tone. And since then, that's led into, lots of other films from Batman vs. Superman, Suicide Squad, and we'll go through the rest of the list. But overall, I think it is been mostly poor, quite a few poor choices in, directors. There's been some filming problems. I think it's just, but, they're still going. That's the thing. I think no matter how many times and how many the negative reception of the DC Extended Universe, it just keeps getting back up and producing sequels.
It does somehow. I'm yawning for even the thought of it, and that, like, you hit the nail on the head with some poor decisions, and I think that's basically nails on the whole franchise and extended universe of. I feel like it's poor decisions after poor decisions, and I do enjoy the fact that, like you said, they keep trying. And we don't really know what's going on with the timeline. We don't know if this movie is now still connected to that. And movies will happen 3 months apart and still won't be connected. And they'll clearly just discount what's happened. So I do appreciate that, and that they're still trying. And also my favorite is I'll find the exact date, but when they came out with their big timeline, and then that just changed straight away when they had the Jeff Johns big announcement. But it's for me, there's a lot of
interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of background things to DC Entertainment and Warner Brothers that I don't think we'll try and discuss too much on, like the back room and the corporate side of things, as there's a lot of name changes and role changes, etc. And we'll focus a little bit more with the films and how it's sort of moved through. But I think a big player, obviously, at the moment is Jeff Johns, who's held a number of various roles and responsibilities high up, but is mainly a comic writer and producer first and foremost. But he is still a large producer of the series. But Mace, where do we start? We'll start with Man of Steel. We're not going to rank them because it'd be a lot of probably unfair to one to actually give it the number one.
Yeah.
But we'll start with Man of Steel, and how does this movie sit with you? And especially after you said like the Christopher Nolan Batman movies, and that's what they were looking at from a Superman.
Yeah. So I mean, going with Zack Snyder as well, I think he definitely wanted a customized Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman with a very dark tone. Because, he's won, a lot of his films, Sucker Punch, Rise, 300, they're all very dark films. And he kind of cinematography, figures, represents all that. It's quite gruesome, it's a take that, Nolan could pull off. But I think the way he approached the first Superman, I don't think some story choices approached with his darker themes, I don't think kind of blended very well overall. I mean, did you like this first?
I think I like the idea of a Superman like this, because Superman's always been and this is me coming from a perspective where I've not read a lot of the comics, etc. But I always feel like when you're comparing Batman and Superman, sort of Batman is the dark, obviously no shit, and Superman is more the light side, and that's sort of what a basis around a Superman's character, and bringing a lot of the different tones of colors and different color grading into the Man of Steel movie. I didn't mind Zack Snyder's take and sort of changing a little bit of the respect of what Superman's like. There's obviously some decisions in the film I may not have agreed with. But I think the biggest problem I found, what this leads into the rest of the series, is Zack Snyder had his 5-part plan that started with Man of Steel. And that was just his plan of bringing in Batman or multiple Man of Steel sequels, but wasn't connected to an overarching head of story or head of development. And I think that's where Marvel has succeeded, I believe, in nailing more movies than it hasn't nailed, is the aspect that they have someone who's not the one who's directing it, overseeing it. It's from a sports perspective, it's having the general manager and then having the coach. So you've still got to be on the same plan and the same wavelength, but the coach has to still report to the general manager. Or whereas here, I think Zack Snyder had free range. One, he directed it. One, he produced it with his wife, and that was his baby and why he wanted to send it. And I don't know if the studio always had the same opinions, and we know what happens later down the line. I think the movie is a fine representation. I think Henry Cavill is a very good Superman, and I think a nice Clark Kent. There's obviously a lot of things that people were talking about regarding his the end, and we'll obviously be speaking spoiler heavy through this whole podcast. But it's I like the movie, but I think it's an indifferent start to where I would have liked it to have gone. And when we talk about 2013 as the time, is also a different world than where we were today, where we are now, especially. But the fact that we haven't got a singular Superman sequel since shows again a lot of the studio problems, and how this was a very, just like you said at the start, a very Zack Snyder film. And I don't know if anyone else, say, picks up this character now individually, can change a lot of the things he's done. Because I know they looked at changing certain elements and even just the color grading in a Justice League. But this for me is it's a very Zack Snyder film, like you've said. And
2013 as well, this is the year after the Avengers. You know, Avengers set a new stand, a new hallmark for what superhero film should be. So 2013, it brought, the tone was, like you said, everything was color graded. It was a very grounded approach. And everyone was like, oh, where's all the fun in this? After something like the Avengers, which, for all, everything happening, it was still quite vibrant, fun, funny. And then you get this and you think, oh, okay, I'm not sure which one I'd rather.
And I think it's that rewatchability, because I think I've watched Man of Steel a couple of times, but I would never be scrolling through a Netflix and go, you know what, if Man of Steel and Avengers come together, I'm always watching Man of Steel now. And now again, some people may put the respect of, oh, well, first Avenger might not have been that bright and fun, but that was set in a 1940s time too. Again, in those sort of times and a bit of modern day. But I think this whole Zack Snyderism of the take on the character sets us on a tone that does not. We all know a lot of superhero movies. It's not about even the box office they make. It's about the toys they sell, and it's about all these extra things. But that Superman for me does not bring an element of I want to buy that toy or I want to rewatch this movie because I really like the take. And I appreciate what they tried to do and have it as it's Superman is just finding out what's going on in his world completely. But I think again, it just doesn't. And his decision to, I know they've spoke about it for years since, to destroy half of Metropolis, essentially, in this fight. Well, I get, and in older movies, no one would have really cared. But this one here, literally, again, people have gone over numbers of how many people would have died in this fight. But I'm just not. I think if we just set in stone and we're moving towards a series that does not bring, like you said, fun or elements after Avengers, but especially watching that, I'm surprised they didn't push a little bit more in that avenue, if that makes sense too. So I'm sort of lost for words on this movie, just for the sake of, I don't want to, it's a fine watch. It's a fine movie. I enjoy it. It's a fine movie, but I think it's one of those ones where it reminds me more of, if this was like the Joker movie, I think I'd like it probably more if it was just a singular one-off film. Whereas it's always trying to connect, because I think that Joker, obviously the latest Joker movie to come out, I think is better off if they just keep it as it is and we don't come back into that world. And I think that's where we kind of struggle, especially when other characters are trying to come into this Man of Steel world that was created, because I don't think many other characters can fit into this world. And that's the problem with the whole series.
No, I agree. And I think, while I think Man of Steel, even in compared to all the, DCE movies coming after it, is still actually one of the best ones.
Yeah.
I think a few things do let it down. Like you said, the fight, the climatic climactic fight at the end. There's a huge, all these fans were really devastated. Like you said, all the innocent people that would have got killed.
Yeah.
And he kills Zod, which is the villain, quite brutally.
Yeah.
Which, a lot of people said, that's not what Superman does. He doesn't just, crack people, crack people's necks and whatnot, as he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there is, certainly some flaws. But I think, out of all the other movies that do come after this, I think the Man of Steel was, a good solid foundation for what was to come. But coming after Avengers and after MCU did establish its world, it did leave audiences kind of a bit, confuzzled, a bit mixed up on what they actually wanted to get out of a superhero film.
I think you're correct, because I think it's, by all means, this is probably one of the better ones. 100% is one of the better ones. But I think it leaves us a little confused of where we go next. And then I think as we slide into Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, it really brings an element of, and there's two of those movies anyway, but it feels like we're just in Zack Snyder's world, and this is the thing that he's creating, yet they're trying to plan all these other movies around it, and Zack Snyder's the Kevin Feige of a world when Zack Snyder's just a director. I know the Russos, I'm sure, have a massive say of what happens in MCU law, especially in the last 4 to 5 years. But I'm still sure Kevin Feige would have more of an understanding, or would be pushing off them and going, no, we can't have that. We're having this because of this connective tissue. And I think that's probably Zack Snyder's problem in all of this, is that no one's overseeing it beside him. And someone else is trying to direct something, and it's just two directors sort of having a fight regarding a character. But we move into Dawn of Justice, and now I just want to get you to, Jack, your 2016 Jack. You're 22. You're going to the cinema with me. I reckon there's probably pods there.
Midnight launch, I remember.
Yeah, midnight launch. Dino's there, I think. There's the crew's there to see a midnight movie, and you sit down. You got your popcorn. You got your drink. Probably got
I've actually got a picture of it of us all ready to watch Batman versus Superman.
Do you actually have it?
Legit, yeah.
Can you find it?
I'm not sure if you're in it, but there is.
Can you find it and send it to me right now so I can put it into the screen?
I can try.
Find it for me after. Yeah, find it for me after, and I'll put it on now. Is that the moment where we all get really disappointed, or is that just a moment of excitement?
We were pretty hyped.
We were so hyped.
Batman vs Superman, this epic, battle that we haven't seen live, live action on the big screen before, all pumped out, ready to go, and then the movie started.
So I think this is when I was watching some of the trailers back last night, just to get into my head again. Do you think this franchise is the best franchise for trailers released ever, but the worst franchise for movies released? This is just a segue. I just had this thought, because I love
the action movie.
I love Batman v Superman's trailer. I think Justice League trailer is still decent. It gets you hyped. Wonder Woman's trailers are good. I think Shazam, Aquaman's trailers are like all good trailers. They're great. They're great marketing, but I think the movies just don't hit it. It's just I watched Batman v Superman's trailer again, and I was like, God, I'm hyped for this movie. And then you watch the movie and you go, this thing's shit. But yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, you're sitting in the theater. What are you expecting out of this movie?
Well, it's called Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yeah. So going into this, I expect this huge battle to take place. It's always been shown through cartoons and comics: Superman versus Batman, jumping on each other, brawling, throwing each other off buildings. Just this really cool, amazing action set piece, or a couple of them for that matter. And, what we got was, I'm not sure if you've got the exact number of minutes that they actually fought during the movie, but I think it was something stupid like 8 minutes. And
there's
that
nothing
was
wrong with lasting 8 minutes, Jack.
Yeah, but in a situation like this, I was just so disappointed. It was really just the way it was edited too wasn't my favorite. And it was, I think with Zack Snyder's take as well, I felt like Warner Brothers were almost pushing a little bit onto him as well, trying to make this a universe. And I think Batman versus Superman was the first film that was like, okay, we got to make this an MCU universe. We've got to throw in as many characters and some plot threads that can lead to future movies as we can. And I think, the story was weak to start with. It was bogged down by introducing Wonder Woman. You know, I love Gal Gadot. But I think throwing her in a movie where you're already introducing Batman from scratch, you know, introducing both Batman and you're kind of showing his introduction, his story within the first 10 minutes, you know, while the credits are playing, is a rush enough introduction, let alone throwing another huge DC property of Wonder Woman into the film too. It's just becomes too much. And MCU, you know, had learned their lesson by that point of introducing too many characters. But this is DCU's the extended universe's lesson of just stick to one character at a time. And they certainly learned it.
I think
do you have any stats there for me as well?
No, I couldn't find it in the end, but I think your point is nailed on the head, because I think all this series needed and this one movie needed, again, at the time of when we're talking about two main heroes fighting off, and this is the same year Civil Wars came out, and both of our favorite MCU film. And I know we don't want to compare, but the whole thing of this is comparing. But I feel like this movie was made at one point where, again, we know it was a Superman movie, and then we're going to probably just throw Batman in a tad. Like, you know, he was just going to be maybe lurking in the background a little bit. And it might have been Batman's role, might have been Wonder Woman's role. Something similar to that, where it's like at the end, Batman comes in to help Superman, and then maybe they might not be happy with what happens at the end, etc. I'm just spitballing here. But I feel like a lot of this in the end was built from a point where it's a Superman sequel and someone goes, well, we need to throw Batman in there. Well, make the Batman movie. Because I remember exactly the day we found out Ben Affleck was going to be Batman in this. I know we went to the pub and you, me and Craigie were talking about it, I presume.
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just, it's weird, you know, it's weird things that you remember. And because I was actually quite hyped for it at that point, probably around 2014 or 2013. I think it was 14 at that point, we knew Batman was going to be in the movie. But I'm just, again, it just shows that this whole story feels like one whole separate Batman movie and one whole separate Superman movie that we've tried to smash into 2.5 hours. And by my whole reports on it also is, the extended edition is a fine movie to watch. It's not a good movie, but it's a fine movie to watch. Watching
3 hour,
3 hour movie. But I feel like if we're talking about the ultimate edition, as they call it, I feel like the 31 minutes that they cut were literally just cutting random things from the parts of scenes. Where it's like when you've got half an hour, like you got 2 hours, you got to cut some movie down, and you just go and just press the cut button and you just take random shit out.
Yeah, then, highlight a segment, delete. Yeah,
like
an essay.
I'll just get rid of that. Who cares? I won't even check. Oh, we start a scene like that. Oh no, we'll just start it a minute later. Like, so for me, there's problems with that, and they throw so many characters into it, like you said, and then there's a lot of problems, and I don't want to go too much into it because I think this whole problem with this film is we say a lot of these things is a whole different podcast, but how LexCorp just has all of these characters that are conveniently going to be in the Justice League, all their files conveniently clipped into small parts already. Like a mini trailer for them is a thing that annoys me. I don't know if that's been on many other videos points, but even that part, I would have preferred if they had like 50 characters and you just had heaps of Easter eggs there. But it was so convenient that it was just the 4 characters from the Justice League that needed to be added in. I was like, well, for God's sake, movie, like it's so dumb. And then the wasted extended, we're going to keep showing flashback sequences or flash forwards or bad dreams, yet we cut really integral parts to the story out. Yet you could have just cut these and just waste. They're types of shit that easily get left on the cutting room floor, and we just go, don't worry about that, we'll worry about it for another movie.
Yeah, see, that's the problem. They added that post-apocalyptic scene, which would have led to, a future film. Yeah. And they even threw in the Flash, didn't they, for good measure, very briefly, hinting that he might be, a future plot thread that might be in the Justice League movie, which never materialized. So now it's just sitting there really out of place because they got too far ahead of themselves. And, similar, I think, because they brought Zod back, it was, didn't they, for the villain? He was just a big grey blob.
There's Doomsday, so they turned Zod into Doomsday, and I think the biggest problem, I am a believer, like we said before, is show don't tell, but you still have to give the audience a bit of understanding of what the hell is going on, because I feel like all of Lex Luthor here he's a normal guy that somehow knows everything that's going on, yet. So he just knows, a bit of my blood, or I'm going to cut my hand and put it onto Zod, and I'm going to walk into this water in the ship, and everything's just going to work out. And it's like, how does he know this? Because I think what would have been better is if we actually fell a bit more of Lex Luthor's character, and maybe he had dreams, or maybe he had, like, there's moments where we're with Batman where he's like, I just have to kill Superman if it's the only thing I can do to save this world. But I would have probably liked to actually see more of Lex Luthor's character in this, to go, why does he hate Superman? Because we're not told why he hates Superman. There's no reason why. And
it's assumed backstory.
Yeah, it's assumed backstory. It's like, don't assume anything for the audience that it's like, well, Lex Luthor hates Superman. We're just going to leave that there. That's the reason why he's doing this. But it seems like Lex is the smartest. They're trying to make Lex the smartest person in the world. Yet how does he know half of this shit? And then, the whole thing is, I won't even go on to the Martha scenes and all this crap. And
just briefly.
Okay, briefly. But like, I don't want to keep it brief, but that whole connection of things and why they're fighting, and why wouldn't, as much as we like, there's moments where it's like Superman knows where Lois is all the time, but doesn't know where his mum is. And then why is it just, Martha, that's his mum's name. Well, convenient plot point I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Like, I understand it. Fighting, and I understand and get it, but it's the old, and I know this has been rehashed in hundreds of videos on the internet, thousands probably, but it's the old moment of like, if Superman just says to Batman, stop fighting, this guy's playing us against each other. I know you might not like me, but we have to fight. We have to team up for the common good. I feel like that fight is finished right there and then. Whereas, especially when Batman just stops anyway, it's not like he stops for much of a reason besides the Martha thing. I would feel better if is your internet lagging there? Yeah. But that's the thing that annoys me massively with that. But before we bash too much, because we've bashed this movie heaps, I think this is, at present point, my favorite Batman. Thoughts? Like, favorite, like, Batman fighting Batman.
Your
like
favorite,
Bruce, as in not Batman, like as in the individual character itself. Like, I think this is the best looking Batman, because I feel like the Nolan Batman is very grounded, but I feel like this, obviously, because this one has aliens and shit. So it feels like, but I feel like the Batman moves quickly and he's strong, and that fight scene where he's saving Martha, I think is a great foil for, because the Christopher Nolan Batman movies don't have fighting like that, I don't feel, and that's where I feel like that's how Batman would move. And again, there's a lot of things also,
and, he has some guns in it too, so
and I think there's a lot of things. I think this whole movie could have just been solved if they gave it one Batman movie, perfect, and then they teamed, and then they had this team up, and maybe you still have Gotham and Metropolis being really close to each other because somehow that's what they want to do, make it like San Francisco. But then you have underlying in both of their films to then come with a connective tissue point. So now moving into, I think we can go straight into Suicide Squad, but I think I want to talk about Justice League just with the connection with Batman v Superman. Obviously, this was released in 2017, but all the problems come in this movie when Batman v Superman does not great at the box office. No, sorry, not at the box office, doesn't get a good rating, and people aren't liking this movie. Now, Batman v Superman, though, even though it was on a $250 to $300 million budget, makes just under $900 million. So it is a financial success. By all means, a financial success. For the movie itself, though, it is not a very well rated. Now, do you need to fix your internet, Mace, or you're good? Okay, and we're back, everyone. Sorry, we've had a ridiculous amount of technical difficulties there. So wherever we ended it, we're sorry. There will probably be a little interlude of music then or something that we'll put in. I'll put in a little, do
your own ad.
I'll do my own ad or something. But no, as we move on, well, I was talking regarding Justice League, and after how the poor reception of Batman v Superman critically, but it did make a bit of money. So people did enjoy the characters in some way to return to the cinema, and the names of Batman v Superman get people to come in. And second Avengers, so after Avengers Age of Ultron in 2015, and you get a Batman v Superman, Batman v Superman 16, Civil War in 2016 also, we head into a Justice League that was filming at the time of release of Batman v Superman. So this is where the problems arise when they then, halfway through production, there is problems with Zack Snyder that we won't go too far into, and they want to change course of where the movie's going. Now, one person has had sole really say on this franchise besides Suicide Squad also, and DC and Warner Brothers look like, oh shit, we've got to change tune now. And a Justice League movie that has been filmed and pretty much fully filmed with 3 to 4 hours worth of content gets redone. Now, how this works does not go too well.
No, it doesn't.
And proceeds to maybe bring one of the biggest box office bombs of all time. And I think that's fair to say. Now, it makes money, as a movie like this would make, but on a $300 million budget, only just crosses over $600 million. So for a movie like that, we'd obviously be expecting Justice League. If you said that to us, as I said before, if you named your top 3 superheroes, majority in 2013 to 16 would say Batman and Superman. Now, so you'd expect a big amount of money to come in, and it doesn't. A plot that's all over the shot, a movie that really does not know what it is and tries to bring in too many plots that was trying to set up from with Batman v Superman, and brings in characters that aren't fully formed yet. In a world where we don't need to have 100%.
Haven't even been introduced.
No, haven't been introduced. So we're introducing Aquaman for the first time. We're introducing the Flash besides a small cameo. Wonder Woman's had 10 to 15.
Quarter of a movie. Yeah.
To maybe show what she's about. And we know a movie of hers is coming out, but we haven't had hers yet. We're also seeing a cyborg character that is integral to a plot that we have no real feelings towards because we haven't had his individual movie yet. And not saying he doesn't have to have his own individual movie, but we haven't spent enough time with this character. So a movie that, by all reports, Zack Snyder one could have been anywhere between 3 hours and 3.5 hours, gets thrown in at under 2 hours. So the runtime is very quick for a superhero movie, especially something with this amount of characters. And really just brings back a Superman and has some interesting fight set pieces. But I think the first moment this movie fails is when we come back to the first moment of Superman with the mustache gate.
Yes. Yeah. I reckon that's problem. Yeah.
Number one there. But I think where does this
If you notice it,
yes. But I think the hardest thing for this again is we're building up a universe relatively in 3 movies. Now, Zack Snyder always seems to say that his story for this would then culminate in a Justice League 2. So his Batman and Superman universe would culminate at the end, and maybe a third movie, pending if they can.
Well, Justice League was looking, for 2 parts originally. There was part 1 and part 2, but part 2 ended up being cancelled quite far into production. I think.
So because they filmed for literally what could have been 2 movies. That's what he'd filmed for, and they cut it down massively. So we look at that perspective, and something that I think is interesting is how this movie continues and grows. But they even change Batman again, and they bring in these characters for jokes, and the Flash for me is even the set pieces are toned down. What you can clearly see were done in reshoots. Like set pieces really done, and again we're fighting what Avengers does bring, but again we see them fighting aimless villains and a CGI guy that really we don't know why he's here. Just Lex Luthor said
that's the problem they had with the others. They got a very drawn out, color degraded bad guy with no personality, very little characterization. He's not even that much of the film really at the end of the day. What's his name? Steppenwolf, which I always just assume with the band.
Yes.
And it's a bloody stupid name to start with. I guess it's from the comics, but he just looks drawn out. Like the actor who plays him, I quite like. He was the bad guy in Tomb Raider 2. He's a good actor, but there was so much CGI on him, you can barely tell it's him. Let alone his acting performance shining through the horrible CGI. But I think the villain has always been a problem from this franchise, from Man of Steel with Zod, and he's not helping the situation having a villain.
And I think they throw in all these other characters, and we get the first bit of Amber Heard, and we'll speak about that when we go into Aquaman. And I feel like even this episode today, we might even throw into two parts, I reckon, with the second half and where the DCEU EU. We can record this later in the week because there's a lot to touch on in this whole franchise, and we might not hit it enough as possible. We throw in so many characters. Like, really, can you tell me why J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon is in this movie, besides the fact that they go, we need a Batman supporting character? Because I honestly don't know why he's in here. Like, there's no reason to have this character in the movie.
No, there's not. I think, everyone loves a bit of J.K. Simmons. They thought, let's throw on another high profile actor.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't even, Jeremy Irons, I don't even really think, as Batman's, Butler, I don't think he's well utilized either.
No.
As I think there was so much cut. I think, they might have had bigger roles, but at the end of the day, they're, 2-minute roles. And points.
And I think all of this just comes into a culmination of 2 hours of, again, redoing the whole end battle with that family to make people feel a connection. And again, they've obviously learnt from and taken a bit out of Joss Whedon's Avengers 2 book that we're going to get everyone out off Sokovia or whatever it is. And then like here, we're going to go to this abandoned power plant. So no one can really be hurt in this final battle. But what I understand and I appreciate to some level, but I just feel like at no point are there really stakes. And this whole thing with Superman, and we all say, let's release the Snyder Cut, and a lot of people do, and that's a big movement on social media. But I don't even know if what they were doing in the right way was correct. But I do feel like if you just continued on with the Justice League as it was, it may have been a better movie and might have been well received, whereas the tone is so mixed. It just doesn't feel like I think sometimes if you've already done all this filming, sometimes you just got to go with it, if that makes sense. Like, you just got to go with it. Like,
well, there were sad times, for Snyder without going into detail. Yeah. And I think, everyone still praises Joss Whedon for stepping in last minute and finalizing and finishing the production. And while it is obvious his tone and his filmmaking is very different from Snyder's, as you can tell, because like you said, you can tell what Snyder's and what's Whedon's. But I think overall he did all right. And he did, have that set piece that then was very much Avengers-like.
Yeah.
And, having four, three extended character backstories in a team-up movie that, that's already high stakes and it's got so much going for it already, just bogs it down with so much exposition and pointless stuff that I think any audience would have much rather seen, in individual character-based movies than throwing all these movies in. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, and maybe not Aquaman, but they're fine. But the way they were introduced in this film, I don't know, almost is, a downside to the character, I think.
Yeah. And especially then when they change a lot of the stuff that happened in this movie anyway, for their individual movies coming out after. Because even just looking here, for a franchise that took so long to get up and running to make sure that everything was right, and they wait, like Batman v Superman took an extra year, everything. Then they just threw Justice League out so quickly. And again, people saying CEO Kevin Sujihadra of Warner Brothers mandated the film be under 2 hours, did not want the delay because they all wanted their cash bonuses before the merger with AT&T. And a lot of people sort of were against that in a way too. Like, maybe the movie needed another 3 or 4 months or maybe another half a year to get everything up to speed. But they'd already pushed back so much that the movie had to come out. So I think, Jack, do you want to just talk about Suicide Squad now, and then we'll go into the other movies maybe in part 2 of this podcast?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, because I think we've got a lot to go on, and I don't think, again, we'll waft, but I think everyone loves listening to our wafting. But I don't want to push this through too quickly. So we'll do this in 2 parts, I reckon. Yeah.
No, that's fine. So I think, so Suicide Squad came out in 2016 too. It was the same year. Yeah,
after Batman v Superman.
Same year. Yeah, and there's once again they throw in a few Suicide Squad's pretty much about a whole bunch of villains that come together to take down the Witch. Yeah. Which is I
think you've actually nailed that. I think that's what
a famous DC villain. That's how basic the plot is. And they throw a few callbacks to the previous movies as much as they can. They include a quick scene with Ben Affleck's Batman. They quickly have something with the Flash in it, catching Boomerang.
Yeah.
So, they try and throw back, have a few nods, to kind of keep it to this extended universe, so to speak. But I think at the end of the day, call me if I'm wrong here, but Suicide Squad is just small bits of scenes with some old 70s music stitched behind it. It's just little montage sequences all stitched into a 2-hour movie with very little plot, very little characterization. All the characterization you get from all these all these new characters is 5 overdone minutes at the very beginning. They introduce 6, 7 characters at the beginning of Suicide Squad. By the time you see it, you're like, fuck. All right, I'm ready to go on with the movie now. I don't give a shit who these characters are anymore. I just want the movie to start.
And I think you hit it. It's just individual scenes just stuck together with no real connective tissue. And then they try and find through lines. And I understand the point is sometimes we're trying to throw big actors in there and etc. But again, it's it's about the fact that if you disobey, we'll kill you. And then we just throw a random character. Who was it who died? Slipknot. We don't give a heck about this guy. So what would have actually been better is if you'd hired, and I'm sure movies have done this before, it's even like the Deadpool, and I'm sure we'll talk about Deadpool 2 at some point, where they bring in all the characters because they think they're getting an X-Force, and then they kill them off in 2 minutes. Imagine if they'd got a bigger named character, like a big actor, not like a Will Smith territory to play, maybe not as a bigger character. And maybe this is what James Gunn may do in his. It's coming out in the next year or two. But imagine if you killed off a Will Smith within the first 20 minutes, and then you'd sit there and be like, oh shit, maybe there is some stakes here. But you've just killed a character that no one really knows, no one really cares about, and an actor that no one knows at all. So you're not really giving anything for it. So
I couldn't even tell you what that character looks like now after just watching the movie yesterday.
So I think, and I remember watching this movie and just sitting there being like, oh, I'm all for, and I understand this is where the point was we need another Joker or whatever, and we're going to tie it into Batman a little bit. But this is, again, just throwing characters together that don't need to be 100% together. You could have had Harley Quinn in it without having the Joker. You didn't have to have the Joker. You did not have to have the Joker in this movie because they just turned to him for convenient plot points to then be like, when that helicopter comes and all this random shit. And then we don't need that in this movie. And it's again, I know that they'd sit in this boardroom and they'd plan this out and they'd plan out there. But at no point do I feel like this Joker interacts with the Batman we saw earlier in the year. So all we needed was not to have the Joker in this film at all. And you just continue on with this group of characters in their path. And again, we try and have Enchantress is supposed to be freaking in love with, what's his face, Mr. Pretty Boy.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I know, Scott Eastwood. And it's but I don't feel for that character at all. I don't feel for any of these people. And then she's gone bad. And there's elements we have to feel for that, and having when they have to kill her, et cetera, et cetera.
But, I'm on your point with the Joker. I think they include the Joker because he's the most recognizable villain in the DC universe. And the rest of the B-grade villains that only fans would know of. Yeah. And they needed that character to get, those people who are not familiar into that cinema.
And again, sorry, they talk about this, but this is, again, the whole problem with this thing is the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe is a lot of B, C-list characters. But you have to do a good character that no one knows. This is, again, was this the same year Guardians comes out? Or was Guardian 2014, I think.
Guardians was 2014. The second was 2017.
So, but so this is, again, that movie is completely D-list, E-list characters that no one knows about, but it's made well, even though I did put that movie low down on my rankings. You can go have a look at Screenblend episode 2 or 3. Go back and have a listen.
I just snorted. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. Whoa. But yeah, so this is the story is shit. The characters aren't well done. You then, I still think my favorite line is, and I want to find the full line because it makes the Katana line, Suicide Squad.
Oh, there's so many shit lines, isn't there? And, I think another thing that weighs it down as well, there's so many flashbacks and even more character moments from the past thrown in between all the action scenes in the present day. And it's just all over the place story-wise, very similar to when we talk about the Harley Quinn movie, Birds of Prey. Apart from all those character introductions, it throws in even more backstory, not really backstory, just, a few random scenes in between all the Bond day stuff. And it's just a bit of a mind fuck, mind my language. Sorry, everyone.
You've sworn 3 times
and
already.
My coffee's wearing off. I know. And it just throws the pacing out the window. Not there was much to start with, but you just watch this fantastic scene, where Harley Quinn's, going off with the Joker, and then it cuts back to a scene of them back in the past, and it's just out of context, and it's there just for the sake of adding that bit of extra backstory that at this stage, with just frankly, the audience doesn't care about.
Well, I think this is like your point. Imagine if those two had their movie before, or we had a Joker, and then we have a Harley Quinn moment before, and then so imagine we have Birds of Prey, and then Suicide Squad. I think we would have more of an understanding of who Harley Quinn, and maybe they're even dating at this point, or that's a part of the Birds of Prey. Maybe that makes Birds of Prey better if we have that moments in Birds of Prey, and it is a Harley Quinn movie. Then we go into Suicide Squad. Maybe that's better. But I still think my favorite line is Rick Flag going, "This is Katana. She's got my back. She can cut all of you in half with one sword stroke, just like mowing the lawn. I would advise not getting killed by her."
Yeah, sums it up.
What? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
one of many shit. Another swear word, another line. Yeah, it's just horrible.
But I'm like even reading some more quote lines here, and I'm like, God, this movie's bad. But it's like Amanda Waller stuff and all this shit. Like, it's like you get Will Smith in as the character, like as Deadshot, and you got to tie him into Batman because that's who he is. Batman got him, so he must be a big villain. If Batman gets it, like, there's just. It's just not. I remember leaving that movie, and did we see it? We saw it together, didn't we? I'm pretty sure. Or did we?
I'm not sure if we saw this one together.
Yeah. But I remember just sitting in, and I'm just sitting there, and I remember I'm just like, this is shit. Like, this is just. And I remember one of my mates was in front of me that I didn't know who was going to be there, and he just turns after and goes, "Oh, did you like it?" And I was like, I thought it was shocking, and I was trying to not be too adverse to it, and like try and be too downgrading on it. But I was like, this is shit. Like, for a movie, and I know they've come out and there are people always, my favorite is anytime a director comes out and starts blaming things or whatever, and I understand it and I get it, but it's just not good.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
And I think that, they're going now with a second one directed by James Gunn, just called The Suicide Squad, is it?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so I think that'll be interesting coming off this movie and Birds of Prey to see what the audience reaction is of this new one. Because Will Smith's not in the new one, not that anything happened to his character in this one, but he was a draw card celebrity-wise for this one as well.
Yeah.
And his presence was, when he was on the screen, that was the only kind of exciting moment I got out of this movie. And the good soundtrack, had Rolling Stones, Creedence Clearwater. So
saying Suicide Squad was greenlit pretty quickly though with David Ayer to direct. Then he left for another one that's been gone, is Gotham City Sirens, but apparently Ayer is still developing the film. No one really knows. Multiple other directors have come on, gone, etc., looking at soft reboots, and now this is where we get James Gunn's take on the characters. So again, I'm thinking it's going to be a little bit of a soft reboot into this world. But we'll finish there, Jack, and then we'll go into the other segment of the show. But we'll finish there with our DC chat. And everyone of these first 4 films, so from 2013 to 2017, where does this sit with you? What's your opinions on the DC EU at this point? And next episode, we'll talk on Aquaman, Shazam, and Birds of Prey, just because, and the future of the franchises, because I believe if we do that now, we won't get into it as in depth as we can, and we can even go back on a couple of these in part 2. But at this point, just final thoughts on Suicide Squad and those first 4 movies.
Well, I think those first 4 movies, if we're talking about them, I think they're all pretty big disappointments. Man of Steel, I can get by as an all right watch, but Justice League, Batman vs Superman, horrible villains, too many character introductions that's taken away from everything else. Suicide Squad, once again, too many flashbacks, all over the place, basic story, B-grade characters, some B-grade actors. Don't even get me started about Jai Courtney. And I think it was a poor start, but, obviously each of them got enough, I know, in terms of the box office, to, produce another one. But I think as a start, and these initial movies were quite poor.
I think you've hit it nail on the head. And we'll now move on, Mace, if you've got anything now, what you've watched this week, or as I am now calling it, the show and tell segment.
Or is there going to be music for this segment too?
Next episode, I will be creating the jingle. Okay. Shows. So if anyone wants to create the jingle for us, 100%. We'll put it up.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah, saves us time.
Yeah.
In terms of watching this week, well, I have been watching, the DC movies and trying to catch up with that. But if I had to give, this is another thing I watched a couple of weeks back, but it's, I might have mentioned this already, but what's it called? The Stranger.
No,
that's really good. So that's a UK crime show. And that's really good. So it's a few intertwining storylines. It's on Netflix.
Yeah.
And the main plot line is about a guy who's lost his wife and he doesn't know where she's gone. And there's another storyline about a corrupt cop who's trying to, hide his crimes. And then there's another kind of story where people at a party and someone goes missing. They're not sure if they're dead or alive. And in a bit of a kind of a Love Actually kind of connection, someone knows someone of each of those connecting plot lines. And it's a really good kind of mystery about what's happening, who's, hiding up all these different conspiracies. 8 parts, about 40 minutes each. And it's a British TV show. So if you don't like British TV, stay back. But no, it's a good 8-part show that I think if you like a bit of mystery and a bit of crime drama, right up your alley.
Give it a watch. Okay. So perfect. I'm on the hunt.
How about yourself?
I'm on the hunt at the moment for a couple of different comic books too, trying to get a bit of reading done in this time, just to update myself. Just doing the old Amazon searches at the moment with a little bit more after I did read the Eternals, but I wanted to read a bit about Shang-Chi and stuff. So that's waiting for those to sort of not be as expensive, or I can get them internationally in a little bit quicker. But I've continued to watch, I think, for anyone who's not even a sports fan, The Last Dance, the Michael Jordan documentary. So for anyone who doesn't even like sports, I think this is a really good insight into athletes and especially in film and TV industry, celebrities at the highest level and the strain that's put on to be at elite level and then also to be in the public eye at an elite level, especially through the 90s. It's the biggest star. So think about it also on the ways of a Brad Pitt and a DiCaprio through the noughties, etc. There's obviously
lots about it, and lots of bloody good things about it too.
Yeah, so
I'm even keen to watch.
Yeah, I think I know I'll move to sport in a lot of things, but it is an exceptionally well done documentary, and I'm enjoying the fact that it's not released all at once. So you get 2 episodes a week and it's 5 weeks. And especially in the world with no sport at the moment, it's great to watch, but it's really well done in an element of, especially episode 5 and 6 talks about this is when Jordan gets close to his first retirement and the strain in even the 90s that the media and everyone puts on him makes him want to quit. And I know a lot of actors go through that too, where they stop for 3 or 4 years and artists give it up for a bit and return to normality of life. So I think it's a really interesting watch, and 7 and 8 are out tonight. So that's my Monday nights at the moment to watch those.
And have you been paying attention?
And have you been paying attention? A great Australian comedy show that anyone, even our international listeners, should go and listen and check out the highlights. Stream. But we'll finish today's episode there, Jack, and we'll move on and we'll do the second part later in the week, hopefully recording in the morning. So we're both a little bit more up and about. As I'm sure you'll probably message me at like 10 o'clock going, the coffee's just kicking in, the son of a bitch. And hopefully we remove some of these audio problems, but I guess that's the beauty of recording from Zoom. But Jack, so everyone can find you, Jack_Mason22, correct?
Yeah, and Jackie Boys 22 on TikTok.
Yeah, on the TikTok, but also check out the Screenblend.net website for some news and opinions there. Check us out on all social media platforms at Screen_Blend. Myself, it will be Cutts on also social medias, and give us your thoughts on those first 4 DC movies. We'll pose a couple of questions also for Aquaman, Shazam, and Birds of Prey, and where you want the DC extended universe to go down the line and with a lot of the movies that happen, because it's a longer form conversation. But again, everyone, stay safe, and anything to end the show on, Mace?
Yeah, just if you heads up in the comments, if you think my audio is sounding even better than previous weeks, let me know.
Yeah.
Because I'm now using a very, very expensive microphone. And so I hope it's paying off. And otherwise, have a good week. And you'll hear part 2 of our DC Extended Universe talk later in the week.
Done. See you, everybody. Enjoy.
Bye.